Raymond has a problem communicating and learning. He can't even express himself or probably even understand his own emotions in a traditional way.
All right, that was a clip from a film that came out in 1988.
Wow.
That particular clip was Dr. Bruner explaining to Charlie Babbitt, who was played by Tom Cruise, someone we've mentioned numerous amounts of times on today's show.
For some reason.
Yeah.
And that his brother Ray, who was played by Dustin Hoffman, has
Brilliantly played by Dustin Hoffman.
Right?
Yeah.
And he was diagnosed with autism. I think for a lot of us, that was the first time I believe I even knew what the word autism meant.
100%.
Right? And that movie was so powerful in that sense because it related to a lot of people in our community.
Right.
You know, a lot of us could relate to it. There's a CDC report that says 1 in 44 children are diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder, with many minority groups receiving a diagnosis later and less often. And so this prompted us to have our two distinguished guests on the show with us today. They are the founders of the podcast Parenting on Autism 2.0 with mocktails and cocktails. And they stayed true to form this morning because they brought the mock and the cocktails. Hold up.
Oh, wow.
Tails.
So long as you didn't bring it.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. So I want to welcome Sybil and Sharonna to our show today. Sybil Burroughs Cornish is a woman who, after hearing the diagnosis of autism for her twin daughters, asked the doctor, "What should I do?"
Yeah.
What does that mean? And the doctor said to you,
I don't know.
Wow.
Autism, they probably won't live past 18 months or grow past 18 months. And so at that point, I swallowed my pride and said, I didn't sign up for this and neither did you. So I don't have the degree on the wall and I have associates in fashion merchandising. I had to find another pediatrician. So I went on the hunt and I found a wonderful doctor that helped me get into the Kennedy Krieger in Baltimore Institute that specializes in autism. And I just walked. And from that point, I just educated myself with a wonderful support system like my mother, my sisters, and all of my friends. And I was very fortunate enough to work for a company that wrapped their arms around me, which was for 22 years I worked with Shoe City, and Sydney and Sabrina are 26 years old.
They're 26? Oh, wow.
And he said 18 months.
And
Wow.
Sydney and Sabrina are 26.
26. They were born on 11/25/96, and they're 26 years old, and they're living on their own. This is the first year that I released them into the world, and they are in residential housing 8 miles away, I should say. And I was just told that I need to back up and stop hovering. Thank you, Nicole. She always redirects me when I'm way too much. But I have released them into the world.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Sybil Burroughs
Congratulations.
Cornish.
Thank you.
Nicole is a person that I worked with when I went to D.C. and hosted a panel discussion about the history and origins of New Balance sneakers.
I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we're going to bring her to the camera in a moment. But also
Yay.
a person I met while I was out there who treated me with such hospitality, made sure that anything I needed was at my disposal, and I appreciated her for that. She even invited me to some extravaganzas that was taking place later that night in the city.
Did you hang out?
I
You always got a story. What? The green juice started kicking in so you couldn't come and hang out. You ate some vegetables and you got to go to the bathroom. What happened? So
One too many tequilas.
I got him drunk.
Good for you. Thank God somebody did it. I try all the
I
time.
got him drunk.
Couldn't hang.
I could hang, you know. So, but Sharonna Ford is here. Give her a big round of applause.
Yay!
Who also has twins
Yep.
with autism, and in her search for resources in the community that she could align herself with, she walked into the establishment Shoe City, correct?
Yep.
And what did you see?
I saw puzzle pieces on the wall, and the puzzle pieces symbolize autism because the doctors don't know what causes autism or how to cure it. So we use the puzzle piece for the symbol. So when I seen puzzle pieces on the wall, I knew someone of importance was affiliated with autism. So I did my research and stalked Sybil for about a year. I wrote a book, parenting. I wrote a book called Blues Brothers Journey Through Autism, and I mailed her a copy of my book and left a couple of books at the store in hopes that she would read it and get back to me.
But the world shut down.
The pandemic happened.
The world shut down, and everyone kept saying this woman named Sharonna, Blues Brothers, Seth and Cyrus' mother, needs to meet you. They want to talk to you about what you did, and their sons are younger than my daughters. And, of course, they're Seth and Cyrus, and I have Sydney and Sabrina, and it's Sharonna and Sybil.
Wow.
Those
That's all
S's.
coincidence right there.
Wow. Do they date?
Yeah.
They do?
My boys
No,
are 10.
10 and 26.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And when we're out, everybody thinks I'm Seth and Cyrus's grandmother, and I honor that because Sydney and Sabrina, and so they're my grandsons. And I read her book, and at first I was just like, Nicole, I don't need any more. I'm like at this point where I've done my due diligence. My girls are striving. I'm like, done. And she was like, well, see what happens. So we met March 17, 2021 with Mass on at her favorite place that Sway was supposed to go to, which is the MGM in DC.
Thank you, Sybil.
Spilling all the tea.
And sipping it.
So I read it, I met her, and the story is so. You can finish. We talked, and she just pulled at every heartstring. Well, what about this? But what about this? And she would call me, and what did you do here? And all of the different stimmings that someone does on the spectrum, and the audio and the therapy. She has a beautiful therapeutic play trailer that she created way before she met me, and I was just in awe at so much of what Sharonna had put into the community at such a early stages, and she just fought. She just, tell your story, how you came up with the trailer.
So basically having twins that are nonverbal and autistic, it just made me see where the gap was in the community. And so I decided to create that. We needed therapeutic play for our children. So I decided to create a therapeutic play center. I'm actually having a center built right now that should be done this summer. But
Wow,
I also
that's incredible.
have
Huge.
Wow.
Congrats. What's the name of it?
Blues Brothers.
That's the name of
Therapeutic play.
That's the name of your foundation too, right?
Yes.
Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Blue is the color for autism.
Okay.
Got it.
And the twins are brothers.
Yep.
So Blues Brothers TPC.
Don't leave out that beautiful bag that Dolce & Gabbana did. She went there.
I went to
and
Venice, and they created this bag for me, and it got the SS right here for Seth and Cyrus.
Ooh.
Oh, that's
in their
incredible.
factory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So it's a one-of-a-kind bag from them, and that was to help, spread awareness for autism. I also wrote a book, and then the Therapeutic Play Center is always at the carnivals and the fairs and anywhere in the community. I just bring it out, and it gives the children a safe, fun, bully-free place to come and have fun. Sensory, if you have sensory, they can come and play at the center.
You
That's
two are
fire.
amazing. You are amazing. And I love how you're
Thank
running
you.
your podcast in the middle of this show. Like, I like that. How you
Yeah.
threw her the question. That was great, Sybil. Just go for it. Just go for yours.
There's so much more stuff that she should be talking about. She did something in the mayor's office. She has done so much. Born on a Blue Day in D.C. So there is a list of things that we are planning to do and have done. So I'm so impressed.
So let's go back to the basics. I think a lot of us, like Rain Man in 1988 was the first time I really started understanding or even heard of autism.
Yeah.
What is autism?
It's a disorder that affects the brain, and that's where you have like the puzzle piece. There's a brain wave, and I was taught at Kennedy Krieger there are 3 left tentacles, if you will, and there's 3 on left and right, and then autism, the middle one is missing, so it causes the nervous system and the cognitive skills and the sensories. So that's why if you see a lot of autistic people, they cover their ears, their eyes, and they stim because it's a nervous system that affects. And the last thing, and I'll let Sharonna talk, is that they said if you could imagine walking down an alley at 2 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, alone, that's how an individual on the spectrum feels always. Nervous, scared, anxious, anxiety, like something is about to jump out. So it could be like a light, it could be a sound, it could be a color that could affect Sydney and Sabrina. And when I'm in the community, you're always on guard to seeing what's going to trigger a meltdown. And if you want to jump in, like what were you told that affected them?
So for me, it's the boys don't know how to communicate at all. They don't understand simple commands. They don't know, like if I say, give me that phone over there, they wouldn't know what it is. Like they work on a routine every day. Every day it's the exact same thing. Every day they have to go to bed at the same time. They take their shower at the same time. They pretty much function on a day-to-day basis in the same routine. If the routine is broke, we have a meltdown, a tantrum. For the Seth and Cyrus, it's more so communicating and understanding commands. They don't know how to talk. They can repeat, but they can't say 2 words or sentences together.
Are those some of the warning signs, the repetition?
No eye contact, stuff like that. But they're getting better with it. Now they'll make eye contact. Now I can get them to do something different. Sometimes it'll take a few prompts, but they'll do something different.
Yeah, it's a struggle when a person is consistent with the same thing over and over again, a simple skill. And my foundation is built on that. The SIDSIV Foundation is developing individuals with autism that are adults.
Okay.
Because as Sydney and I and Sabrina and I walk through this journey, the school system have a lot of support. The school system gives the support of the family. There's an IEP. As soon as an individual, whether it be autism or any type of disability, turns 21, and they aged out at 21, they did walk with their class in 2014, but they allow someone on the disability to stay in the school system for 3 years. And so they get 21 and then they exit out of the school system and they're done. Either you go into an agency where you kind of like lay dormant and there's no more development. So I struggled with entering into that world. And so it took a long time for me to say which the best vehicle or the best avenue or the best day program. So I created a day program for my daughters, and my husband is, you met Malik, he's in landscape, and that's a simple skill. So landscaping, blowing the leaves, having that consistency. But the one thing I did different, raising Sydney and Sabrina, I made sure that every day was different.
Okay.
I didn't set them on the path of having, and it was a struggle. It is not easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
But why did you do that? You didn't want
because there's never the same day.
Yeah.
Okay.
You wanted them to be able to adjust to that change.
We all,
Yeah.
even if we don't have a disorder, difficulty with change, embracing something, embracing the change and emotional, your emotional sensories, you deal with it when you don't have it. So I had to, as a single mom with daughters on the spectrum, force them into the world. Nikel has a ton of stories that she watched me and her kids, go to Disney World and go do these things. Sharonna has, Seth and Cyrus has more stamps in their passport than I do.
Okay.
They've traveled the world. Her book is about traveling on the spectrum. And that was one of the reasons why I connected with her, because I didn't keep it the same.
We have Sybil Burroughs Cornish is here and Sharonna Ford are here. They the founders of Parenting on Autism with Mocktails and Cocktails. They just went bonkers when they met Andy Cohen in the hallway.
Andy will get you drunk.
Okay, so we're going to open up the phone lines. If you're parenting on autism, share your stories. 888-742-3345. Sway in the Morning, Shade 45. Have to be in Tracy G. We're talking with Sybil and Sharonna from Parenting on Autism 2.0 with Mocktails and Cocktails. It's a podcast. People could check out this podcast now.
Yes.
Yes.
Where can they find it?
On all podcast platforms,
Spotify,
Apple,
Pandora?
Pandora.
Okay, that's you say that first when you're here.
Okay, Pandora.
Just in case you didn't know. They also the founders of the Sip Foundation and Blues Brothers Foundations. April 15th. Saturday, April 15th, they're going to be hosting a fundraiser event for these foundations. And Faith Evans is going to be a guest.
Nice.
And she's going to talk about her experience being a parent with on autism. And where can they go to? Where is this located, this event?
It's going to be in Prince George's County, Camp Springs, Maryland.
Okay. All right. HB, you got a question for
I
him?
do have a question for both of you. For a parent that's out there listening now, they may be a quote-unquote single parent. I can't imagine how they do it, quote-unquote, by themselves. What suggestions would you make? Because a lot of times people are uncomfortable with asking for help. Yeah. It's the strangest thing in the world to me, but what would you suggest that they do? Because no one can it sounds like you can do it by yourself. You just can't. You need help.
So basically, that was my number one thing. When I first found out that the boys were autistic, I didn't know where to go. So we started support groups, and we have support groups where we bring parents in, single moms or caregivers, whoever, and we discuss different things. And we also, it's also the reason why I wrote my book. It's a great resource to families just learning that their child is on the spectrum. It gives you a good idea of what to expect moving forward. So we have these support groups, we have the book, and then we have the podcast that they can listen to that will also give them guidance on, different avenues that they can take that will help them.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that I will say is definitely get your support system and face it head on. A lot of times people they see it before they hear it, and they go into a denial. And when you hear the diagnosis autism today, there's so many resources. Get in the therapy that you need for yourself and for your child. The window of getting the response, whether it be the eye contact or the verbal prompts, is so crucial in the early stages. So if you hear it, move on it. And it's the hardest thing because why me?
Yeah.
Why me?
Yeah.
And that was what I dealt with. And I have 3 sisters, and my mother and my father were alive at the time. And I keep saying I had this wonderful, wonderful company. And I'm getting emotional because our company is Shoe City. And for 22 years, if I was facilitating a training session and they were having a meltdown, all I had to do is look at the phone would ring, and I'd look at them and they'd say, go take care of Sydney and Sabrina. And to have the support of a small company, Nicole, I wouldn't know her if I didn't work for Shoe City.
Yeah.
And so it's about saying it. And a lot of people in the 90s, when Sydney and Sabrina, in the early 2000s, when I had them 96, some of my friends get mad when I would say, excuse me, they have autistic, they're autism. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And they're like, why do you keep telling everybody this? I was like, because they need to know. They're not misbehaving.
Yeah.
They're not just having a bad day. This is something that they're living with. So,
and you're living with as well.
yeah. So it's hard to let go.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of what we've accomplished in the 26 years of living on this journey. And when I met Sharonna and other women that I meet, and I'm constantly counseling so many people, I just knew that God put me in this community to be the vessel,
Amen.
Especially 26, when it was, a small portion of us identifying with autism.
Yeah.
And not, I was not going to put them in the corner in the back.
Right.
And just be like, oh, they're back there, and like take the food to them. No, they were going to have a place in this world, and that's where Sydney and Sabrina have their
that's amazing,
foundation.
Sybil. That's amazing.
And it doesn't cost anything to give people what you know, because you don't know what you don't know, and then when you get to know it, give it.
Share
And-
it.
Absolutely.
And that's what God told me.
You know, thank you so much, Sybil and Sharonna. We've spoken a lot about the challenges of autism. I've also always heard about the gifts that those on the spectrum have,
Yes.
in particular to the arts, whether it's fine arts or whether it's music or the in-between. Can we hear about that as well?
Well, raising Sydney and Sabrina, my family is a part of the arts. Russell is my brother-in-law. My sister is an actress. My niece performs here at the Met. I played the piano. I rode horses. And every ounce of what I did growing up, Sydney and Sabrina did. So it's very important. The music is important to the therapy, just listening to music, to let them stem to a beat. Is important. Russell wrote the song because he said Sybil's going to give them some blues, and I didn't know he was writing the song, but I was in the living room talking to Sydney and Sabrina just like I'm talking to you. I just said that they were going to grow past 18 months. So the music is important. They played the piano until they found the words, and I drove up. The lady that taught Sydney and Sabrina taught me and everyone, Jennifer and Becky and everyone. And when my mom died, Miss Jackson said, I'm going to teach Sydney and Sabrina because they need the arts in their life. So it's very, very important. They draw, they scribble, and whatever they do on paper, I frame, I make it. We did, during the COVID, we did tie-dye masks.
Ooh.
You know, and it wasn't, we sold them. It was, you know, Sydney was bored and I said, come on, like, you can't keep coloring on the walls. Let's find some dye. We can't keep eating the dirt. Let's plant some leaves. Let's plant some fruit. So, you know, that's why the tree represents our foundation, because it shows that trees grow and soil. And, you know, the doctor said, I would be like, they're eating the dirt. He's like, okay, it's got iron in it. They're piking because they're, you know, so I had that community of people that said, it's okay that they're eating dirt. Not, ew, yuck. They're just like, you know, they're eating it. They're piking, and it's an iron deficiency that they have. And so when they
iron. Get it from we was talking about iron today. Sharonna, what about your boys?
So Seth and Cyrus, they know how to swim.
Okay.
They can swim. We were in, I want to say, Dominican Republic, and they ran down the end of the dock where the boats come in and jumped off into the ocean. Everybody that was standing there was scared, but I knew they were going to swim back up. Thank God they did. But they know how to swim. There's stuff on my Instagram page where they're like looking up and looking around, and the teacher's telling them, like, how many apples do you see? And they'll do like this, and then they'll hit 20. Like it's like they just look at it, and then they know it's 20. Yeah, so they're real good with that. She'll show them like yellow and red, and they'll just find the card. This is red. Like, they're really good with that. They can't say it, but they can pull the words together and match it, like, without even looking.
It's coming.
It's coming,
It's
right?
coming.
Mike Muse, you want to jump in?
Yeah, this conversation actually hits home. This is a very powerful conversation. I got a little bit emotional over here. I just texted my my family member, and I asked her if she was listening right now. Because you two remind me so much of her and her husband. And I just brought my nephew along with me to Disney World, who is on the spectrum. And I've always been impressed with her and them by their resolve. We'll be out to restaurants in noisy places, and it gets so busy, and he's expressing himself, and they never dim his light. They never tell him to be quiet. They are so resolved. They don't distract. They let him be, and they are so calm in it. And I know inside they are just as anxious. Everyone is looking, how are they thinking, how are they responding? And I just asked her, if you can, stop work and pay attention to these two.
Oh, thank you.
So I would love to be able to connect you with her, because I'm always so proud of them and how they're raising them. And
That's
I had
beautiful.
a cousin back in the 90s who was on the spectrum. We didn't have words for it, but she used to work at McDonald's, and she was so proud of that job. And she would just be in the front, and she would mop, and she would sweep, and that was her day-to-day. And she was full of so much light and joy. And we never dimmed her light too. And so thank you for your work. to what you're doing to help. I love the fact that you guys say Disney World does have opportunities for people who are on the spectrum to receive special services.
Yep.
I love that you're traveling, normalizing them, and
Absolutely.
normalizing the situation. What would you say to parents, though, who are not as strong as my friends, and who are not as strong as you guys are in your identity and your self-esteem, to sit and be calm and let your kids just be? That's got to be hard. So what would you say to that parent who's listening?
It all happens with time, because I also went through that. When they first told me they were autistic, I took a step back, and at first I kind of got like, well, what does this mean? You go through a whole grieving process, because when you're pregnant with your child, you think, oh, my baby's going to go to prom, my baby's going to have babies and get married and drive cars, and when I take my child to get their driver's license, but then reality sets in, and your child is not going to do these things. So it's a whole grieving process that you have to over time accept and just come to grips with, and just realize that this is your new normalcy, and my new normalcy is creating this different world for my children. And so it starts off with you feeling like this, and you're not as strong, and you feel defeated, but it comes with time, and things get better, and you just got to stick to it.
For me, I decided that stop trying to fit my girls into mainstream society, and I live in two different worlds. And when I'm with my girls, I'm in their world, and I get down on their level. And I identify that, it's the light. Let's put on our sunglasses. It's okay. True story. We travel so much, and that there's so many stories, but I'm going to tell two funny stories. We travel so much, and the checkpoint, and I don't do a lot of the handicap, because again, I try to force them into like patience. Let's wait in line. And we were a little late, and Sabrina didn't want to put her phone down. And I said, you got to put it down. You got to take the hair. You got to take the, and so she took it off, and I turned around and she pulled my wig off. And I'm standing there, I'm like, and Malik and Sydney, because we pair them up, he's already gone through the checkpoint with Sydney, and they're putting their shoes back on, and I'm tussling with my wig, and I was just like, okay. The woman behind me, she goes, you got a lot going on. I said, you think? As the wig is like turned upside down. And so my husband's like, I walk through checkpoint, and he's like, what is wrong? And I'm like, she took my damn wig off. She took my damn. So I'm like, and so he's like, it's gonna be okay. And I see his shoulders just laughing inside, just laughing like, like, get her, Sabrina. Like people always, when they like lash out at me, they always go, get one for me, hit her for me.
Try to piggyback on that
story when you were going through the toll booth with the candy.
There's so many. But the last one I want to say about fitting them into the society and being depressed. I was on the phone with Nikel again, and she's my everyday. And so the kids are out in the courtyard in my house playing. And, we all played outside as kids, right? We didn't have all this technology. And they're riding the bikes, and I'm on the phone, and I'm bawling. Will Sydney and Sabrina ever go outside and play? And she said, what? What are you worrying about that for? She has low tolerance for tears. Thank you very much. That's why I'm pushing them back. And she'd be like, don't get on there crying. She's like, she was like, you don't know if, they probably wouldn't even want to go out there and play with them kids. They got each other. Yeah. And from that point on, I was like, you're right. They got each other. They're going to have each other forever.
Okay, look, the phone lines have been lit up. I just want to make sure people can hear your stories and your experiences. I like that there are a lot of folks who are living with kids on the spectrum or family members. I'd love for you guys to do some quick Q&A with them. Okay, so 888-742-3345. J45, we're talking with Sybil, Burroughs, Cornish, and Sharonna Ford. They're with Parental on Autism 2.0 with Mocktails and Cocktails. That's a podcast you can find on Pandora and all other participating DSPs. They also are the founders of the SIP Foundation and Blues Brothers Foundation. They're holding an event April 15th at
Prince George's County, Springfield, Maryland.
Okay, and if people want to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you, Sharonna?
hell?
Well, you know, enough
Wait a minute,
mocktails and cocktails.
No, she's a mocktail girl.
Okay.
So no, it is in Camp Springs.
Camp Springs, I'm sorry.
This is
I told you
is a
drunk people
mocktail.
always know the truth. It's the ones that's sober that be messing it up, Sway.
Hold on. I wanted champagne. What you give me?
I don't know.
Tequila.
Okay. They're for real about it.
Wow.
You don't need no other
but let me
body.
They also brought me a gift. Hold on, let me before we go
Okay.
to this.
Is it a bottle?
I don't know what
Yeah.
it is. Sharonna, what is
We gotta
this?
stay consistent.
Sharonna, what is this?
On brand.
You got it.
Okay, yeah, open that up for me there. And then, Mikkel, you got me a gift too? Come over here if you don't mind.
Mikkel, show your beautiful face to the camera.
Woo-hoo. It's champs. It's Prosecco.
Oh, nice. That's a really beautiful bottle. Nicely done. That looks like a bottle of La Marca,
La Marca,
too.
yeah.
Mikkel, stay right there.
Yep.
I love Lamarca.
This
Right?
is- This is my New Balance Connect. I'm putting her on blast right now. All right, so she got me something nice right here.
Beautiful.
Let's see.
Wow, what I got? What are these?
Exclusive.
2002 R.
Exclusive.
Nice, Sway.
Yay.
She must have known he been losing the sneaker wars around here.
That's
You
right.
hear that, Mikkel? You hear that? You hear that hate?
DMV now.
I'm part of the DMV. They show me love,
Yeah, you
man.
need to be a part of winning some of these sneaker wars that's been happening. You've been losing now.
Yeah.
I'm glad
I feel like that
somebody
is
bought
so
you something.
inappropriate. That is so inappropriate, Heather.
Losing, Nicole. Losing badly, too.
I
No
ain't
White
brought
House.
Coming in 5th place with only 3 people.
I ain't brought my things out, Mikkel. You know what it is. I only want to, Anyway,
Those should take you back to the top.
these will take me back to the top, right?
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Sharonna.
Uh-huh.
We're going to play poker eventually. If you can remember where the casino's at. All right, let's take a few calls real quick. Okay, we have Tanya on the line from Maryland. Tanya,
What's
welcome
up,
to the
T?
show.
Your
Hey,
homegirls are here.
Tanya.
Hey, Tanya.
Hello, everyone. I want to say thank you, Sway, for having your guests on to talk about this very, very important subject matter. My son was recently diagnosed with autism level 1, meaning that he's high functioning. So it wasn't something that I noticed when he was younger. He was meeting all his milestones, but when he got in school, I started to notice that he was very anxious. And I'm thinking, oh, it's just kindergarten jitters or whatever. But I knew as his mom, like, something's not right. Let me go and get some information. And so I started talking to his pediatrician, and then she referred me to a company out here called Verbal Beginnings. I had him evaluated, and that's when we got the diagnosis. And I immediately, like your guest said, I was not one of the parents who was like, okay, I'm going to be ashamed of my son's diagnosis. I'm not going to share it, or I'm going to go into grief. I went into, okay, let's get him service. Let's get him the help that he needs with school and everything. And I'm a single mom. Most of my relatives are up in age, so they really can't help as much. Trying to explain it to them, some were like, don't share it with people. But I was like, I'm not that type to not share certain things because it could be a help for someone else who's probably keeping it quiet. Yep. My son, he's making tremendous progress with the support that I have at his school, which is a public school where we live.
That's good to hear.
I quit my job, and I'm an attorney. I quit my job.
Wow.
I work, and your guests will notice, I worked in Bethesda, not that far out from D.C., and I live in Rowan County, which is next to BWI Airport, which is a hike. And my son was just going through it, and I needed to be home, working from home full time, so I can have accessibility to get to him at school when I needed to. And, that wasn't an option. So I quit. And everyone's like, oh, my God, what you going to do for resources? And I'm not worried about that. My main objective and focus is on my son, and I have to report he has made tremendous strides.
Okay.
Hey, let's go.
What's his name?
His name is Joshua.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Sure.
And then Mike Muse was speaking about this off air too. She said he's level 1.
Yes, there's a spectrum from A to Z. So there's mild, which level 1. Then you go to moderate, mild to moderate. Sydney and Sabrina are mild to moderate nonverbal. So there are different spectrum from A to Z. And then you have the Asperger's spectrum, where there's high levels
Albert
of,
Einstein.
and the severe is they can't transition into mainstream. So then they have lots of services, whether the severe could help hurt themselves or hurt the community. A lot of banging on their cells and the walls and the heads. So it's, it's severe enough that you need a lot of medical support. So my girls are mild to moderate nonverbal. And the nonverbal part is that when Sharonna was talking about we take can't out because they can. It's just going to take some time. And that's been what I've done with Sydney and Sabrina, because when someone said 18 months, they won't grow past 18 months. I was like, well, what do you do with that?
Yeah, and at 26. And you wanted to...
Yeah, I just want to chime in just a little bit and on that note about the different ranges of it. And so for parents that give them hope, right, that, all shall be well, is that I have another family member whose son was on the spectrum, and I'd create this film summit, and I invited him to participate because I felt like he can. And I ended up doing a film intensive at USC, like a film school program. And I also, too, felt like he could. And so I said, no, I want him there. Yeah. And as a result, not only did he graduate high school, he went on to undergrad, but then he just got accepted into film school.
Fantastic.
Right?
Wow. Fantastic.
Wow.
Right. Very dope.
Yes. And so, but I want to, if you don't mind leaning into, there's another friend. I have a lot of friends with this. And this one is listening right now, friend to the citizen of Sway in the Morning. He and his lovely wife, they talked to me a couple of weeks ago, I didn't realize this, about the legal advocacy services for kids who are on the spectrum to get into specialized schools, to really, or that are able to get into these private schools here in New York City. And there's lawyers out there who fight on behalf of kids on the spectrum to ensure that they can get that amazing K through 12 experience and for free. So if you could, now obviously every state is different.
It certainly is.
But
the state of Maryland.
If you can talk, just a familiarity you have with that and any information you can give to the citizens who are listening.
Depending on your county, and the last call in, she's in Montgomery County, Howard County I live, Prince George's County. Our state is split up. So I wish there was what New York has with the attorneys and getting them into specialized schools, because in the state of Maryland, if your county public school system can serve the individual on the IEP, they will not fund it. So
DC is different though.
Yeah, that's why I said we could
lawyers.
We could talk different, and so it goes back and forth. For me, Maryland, my county is A1. All their schools are at the top. Okay. So
I personally didn't want my children in those specialized schools. They wanted to split my children up and put them in those schools. And I took a tour of the school, and I didn't like it. There were children in the classroom that still were wearing diapers, that had to have their diaper changed. I didn't want my children to see that.
Is it more like an institution?
No, it was a school.
It was a school.
It was a school.
So this is, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here. I just recognize that every state and city is different.
It's
so
different.
I just want to do speak in general, but for audience members who are listening, check with your city, check with your state. There are services that are providing, and these schools in New York are elite private schools.
Sure.
So they're
and
not,
they get in. That's wonderful.
They're not those. I don't know what those types of. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. But there are schools that New York has where they pay $50,000, where privileged kids pay $50,000 and get educated K through 12. There are lawyers out here in New York City who will advocate for your child who is on the spectrum to be able to attend those schools. And so if you are listening, I just encourage you to see if there are lawyers in your city, lawyers in your state that have this program where your kid can get into not specialized schools for kids on the spectrum specifically, but just into very high-performing private schools to receive a really good education.
Okay, I'm going to take another caller. Haywood, are you a man?
Yes, sir. What you mean I'm a man?
I'm just making sure. I just wanted to make sure I got a male. You know what I mean? Yeah, because I wanted to talk to a man. We've yet to do that. You know, so to see if your experience, what your experience is, and you're in Wisconsin, talk to us.
Yeah, I didn't find out that my daughters had a form of autism. Like they said, it's levels to autism. My daughter has Rett syndrome, which affects 1 out of 15 girls. And my daughters, they can't talk. One of them can't walk. But I never thought that I would, be sacrifice my life to raise them. I raised them from 6 to 24 by myself.
Good for you.
By yourself?
By myself.
Wow.
Man.
Wow,
man. Haywood. My God.
Happy Father's Day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing a book about it.
Good.
I can't talk about it because I get emotional.
Okay.
Because when you go through it, you know what you go through.
Yeah.
And it's rough, man. It's rough. But I never thought of me leaving my girls in other people's hands. And they're beautiful. Twins, they're beautiful, man.
Yeah.
And you know that they had Rett syndrome unless you saw them with their repetitious motion with their hands.
Uh-huh.
And for anybody who's listening out there, go on Google Rett syndrome and read about it. I bet you would not leave that site with tears in your eyes.
There you go.
He said he had twins?
Twin
girls.
Hey, Wood, do you have, were you able to reach out to any support groups or even maybe men who are raising kids on the spectrum?
Well, yeah, I keep up with the Rett Syndrome Foundation, and they send me a list of people in my area with Rett Syndrome girls. But I haven't, everybody I talk to, they say, hey, was your story unique? We have never, it's guys that be like, hey, we admire you, man, to come see you raise your daughter. And they see me with the girls and everything. I get their hair done, and they got plats and everything. I try to make a life for them.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought that I would do this. But, hey, it is what it
You
is.
do
I
what you
love
got
my
to
girl
do.
to death.
There you go. Hey, we appreciate you, Haywood. Thank you for calling in and sharing your story, brother.
Yeah.
You're a citizen,
Let's
man.
sway in the morning.
These two amazing guests, we have to wrap the show up. But before we do, I don't feel like we gave your information out enough because you got a ton of phone callers. Deanna in PA, Jesse in Texas, Nikki in New York, Shauna in Denver, Lee in Cali, Sean in New York, and others that are calling. Where can they reach you directly if they had questions, or how can you be reached? This is Sybil.
I can be reached at sidsibinc.com, and that is the website for my foundation, or Parenting on Autism with Parenting on Autism 2.0.
Okay, Sid, S-I-D, Sib.
Yes.
Sid, Sib.
Yep, foundation.
Okay. Sharonna?
I can be reached at bluesbrotherstpc.org, the website, or my Gmail, bluesbrotherstp@gmail.com.
You have other kids, right?
I do.
So how is that dynamic, raising kids who are on the spectrum with kids who aren't?
So I actually have 4 kids. I have a 22-year-old, getting ready to be 23. She's in school to be a doctor. Got 2 more years left.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Shara. Getting ready to be a doctor.
Okay.
And she has been my best support. Like when she's home, even before she went to school, she would take them to the jump place, the pool. She does everything with them. She was my my respite nurse. She gave me all my breaks.
Okay.
And then Anthony, my son, he's 19. He's getting ready to join the fire department, but he's good with them too.
Yeah.
He does a lot of wrestling with them and taking them to the store and picking them up from school when I need him to. So the older kids come in and help out a lot.
Wow.
That's great.
You two are amazing. Give them
Yes,
a round of
they
applause,
are.
man. Big
Thank
round of
you.
applause for sharing your story and the
you.
work that you're doing.
Sybil,
Sybil, Burroughs,
Sharonna.
Cornish, and Sharonna Ford. And make sure you follow them and check them out. You can hit us up too. We'll give you their information. Thank you for coming.
Woo.
Thank you.
You had a good time?
I had a blast.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Oh, we appreciate
All
you
right.
so much.
Yeah.
Send your love to the kids.
Thank you.
Kel,
Yeah.
thank you too,
Thank
okay,
you.
for the sneakers, and thank you for the gifts. And when I win the next episode of our Sneaker Wars, I'll make sure to take a picture. Mike Muse, how can they reach you, brother?
Yo, hit me up at I am Mike Muse, MUSN on Twitter and Instagram.
Big Torch.
Hit me up. I'm at Torchington. That's Torch, INGTON.
DB.
Yo, gonna be posting the mix later today.
Okay. It's really DB.
Yes.
Okay. And then on Tracy, how can I reach you?
Citizens, love y'all. Twitter, Instagram for me. Hit me over there at It's Tracy, GITSTRACYG.
Bizzle.
Hit me up at canvascolors.co. My new Billy Talk lip color drop that's called Phenomenal. Just in time for Mother's Day. Phenomenal. It is out now. Canvascolors.co.
Yay. I need that.
Oh, come on, Heather.
Yes.
Dang.
He only want to be my manager when it's convenient. It's hard finding good help out here. Then y'all say that the support system be real.
Yes.
Gosh.
Oh, come on,
I
man.
got y'all though.
All right, I'm at real sway across the board, and Ty, our video guy, will be our video engineer. Will be putting this and producing this interview together, so you'll be able to watch it on Sway's Universe. Yay. And then also you'll see me posting a lot of it on my Instagram as well. But thank you to the citizens that called in. We were live today. We'll be back live tomorrow as well. I'm at Real Sway, and we're gonna end with our new song. Yes, sir. And picked by DB. We have nothing left to say.